All right. Happy Sunday, everybody, and welcome back to another fun time ahead today with Pamela Aaralyn. I totally forgot. What was it again?
It's Aaralyn.
Aaralyn, and it means
It means with song.
with song. All right. And you said that's a Irish ancestry.
Mhm.
Is that where you're from, Ireland? Is that because
No, my great grandmother, and my grandmother also has an Irish last name, so there's a lot of that going down on that side.
I see. But you bring through such a wonderful Irish accent in some of your channelings, and or it sounds like maybe. Oh no, British. This was British when you brought through.
Oh,
I thought you
which
brought through
one?
Diana. I'm sorry, Diana.
Oh, Diana.
And,
I think maybe I was just picking up on her.
right. But it had you carried it through very well. And for some reason, I thought there was some Irish in there. But I know your partner's from Ireland, right? So maybe that's what I'm thinking
Yeah.
because I hear Irish coming through. Well, welcome to Interview with Ed. This is an ongoing journey for me, and I've been interacting with different channelers, and we're finally at this stage where I've seen most of the channelers here on our Sunday calls with that have been on the actual show. And now we're starting to dip our toe into new arenas, introducing my audience to new folks like yourself. And I'm just excited because when I discovered you on YouTube, and then I went into your Patreon, you just had such a vast plethora of different entities and beings that you connected with and brought through, and you brought them through in such an elegant and authentic way. So I wanted to just hear about your journey. How did this start for you? And I know today we're not going to do any channeling because we're going to save that for another time. But just to hear your journey and to hear how this adventure of channeling started for you.
Well, it started at age 5. Had an
Okay.
unusual awakening experience with an angelic collective. The first angel I saw was Archangel Raziel, who explained a lot to me about the Akash and my particular propensity with it and how to learn it. And that training began all day, all night, nonstop. It's been really difficult to balance that with just trying to be a human and a wife and a mother, and a friend.
Yeah.
Since then,
But at 5, that's in what way did it show up for you with that type
yeah,
of at that age? We're still developing our minds and
yeah.
figuring the world out.
As far as I knew, I was already starting to get a little bit weird, according to my mom, and the fact that I didn't talk much was kind of her first giveaway. I would hum, or I would make vibration noises, or I would sing. So I didn't speak a lot, and I did not speak a lot until around that time frame. And then from what and we lived in, we were poor. We lived in the southern United States. And at that time frame, in this tiny little town of like maybe 1,000, maybe 1,500 people,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we lived on a lot of acreage in the middle of nowhere. And I just started to kind of think some things were normal, but my first experience was just sharing, sharing a room with my parents, because that's how poor we were. We lived with our grandparents, and my brother and I shared a room with our parents, and we have the big queen size bed. And then my little brother's crib, he was a baby, like maybe 18 months or so, and I was about 5.5. Okay. And I had my little twin bed off to the side, and a light came on in the room, and I thought maybe somebody was just getting up to go to the bathroom and really needed the light on, and it was annoying, but I opened my eyes, and we had back in these trailers, these single wide tiny little trailers, these sliding doors that when you moved them, everybody heard it. And I was like, well, the door's open, the light's on, something's going on. And there was this being sitting there, and in a fully white robe with a golden sash around his shoulders and around his waist. And like head popping through the ceiling, all a huge being, motion to me to come to it. And I was trying to determine whether I was scared or whether I was going to come, but my little brother was jumping up and down and bouncing and laughing and giggling. And I thought, well, it can't be that bad. He's not afraid. He's a
Okay.
baby.
Yeah.
So I walked over to it and it touched me here, and said, now you see, and touched me here on both of my ears and said, now you hear, touched me on my heart area and said, now you feel, and then touched me here, but he didn't say, now you know. He said, will you choose to know? And I said, yes. It was like that was a free will question that the being intervene or, take over. And I said, yes. And he said, who will be your guides? And I blurted out some names that I had never heard of before. And I blurted out the name Jesus because that had been, as a Southern Baptist fundamentalist family, that had been kind of put in my threshold.
Sure.
So I blurted out these names that I had no idea what they were. And then Jesus, these three beings. And then
do you remember what those other beings were now, or?
Yeah. I said, and you should imagine me trying to explain this to my mother later. I blurted out Lucifer.
Wow.
Jesus,
okay.
And Lilith.
Lucifer, Jesus, and Lilith.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Those are some powerful energies. I think every single one of those, right? In their own right.
And then I backed it up and went, well, how do I even know who's Lilith, and how do I know why did I say Lucifer? Why did I say, I would say Jesus, and who's Lilith? And I had a lot of questions, but from that moment, there was a boundary blurred in my vision between what's physical and what would be the best way I could describe it. It felt like the air was, there was like a lightness to it, and it was moving sort of like when you pour gasoline on asphalt after the rain, that you see it like the petrol stations or whatever, and you see that
the rainbow kind of
the
color.
rainbow. It looked a little bit like that, and then I started seeing those energies around people. I started seeing that light a bunch more coming through my bedroom, and a bunch more coming through the window behind my brother's crib. And then I got moved into a room of my own, and that was, oh my goodness, tons of things started happening then when my parents weren't around to observe it, particularly with extra dimensional beings and what I now know of as humans from the future. But I didn't know that for a long time, probably not well into my 40s. I'm 47 now. So me getting a grip on what these beings were and alternative realities and parallel dimensions did not happen until my 40s.
Right. You didn't have the maybe the vocabulary for it.
I didn't really understand that it was the future. Like my linear brain couldn't gather that concept of experiencing the future at the same time. I thought that I was just seeing it, but I was actually experiencing it. So it became a deeper than remote viewing experience for me.
Yeah. What can you describe that a little bit more?
Well, I knew what remote viewing was because I was trained by all of the angelics in that one since age 5. And I knew the difference between that and what I was feeling when I would see something and have that bird's eye view and be able to see that at the same time as my human body still in my bedroom as a child, et cetera, et cetera. But I didn't really understand the other thing. Like it felt like I was myself in another body experiencing that timeline where that being was and trying to understand everything. Like I'm still me, but I'm not. I look down at my body and my body looks different. My clothes look different. My name is different, but I'm still Pamela while experiencing it. And then I would meet all these other beings, in the town or in the area who would describe to me, and they, when I would ask, they would say, this is this year and this is what, and I started to get curious, do you have a president or a prime minister? I started to just ask basic things, and that experience started in my 20s, but it didn't happen.
Wow. Okay. I thought the future human connections was more recent, but
no, I started remote viewing them in my 20s, but then it became from remote viewing to full on experiencing the future. Some people call that bilocation in terms of a technical term, but I don't want to sound kooky, but this is just what it is. It's kind of like time traveling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm still me, but I'm experiencing this from another person's perspective, and I could see everything that's, and they're talking to me, and we're eating the food and swimming in the waters, or sometimes when there's not water, unfortunately, I can see some terrible time frames as well. So once I got
Right.
really, really used to doing this and recognizing that it was something that I can't even get a name to, because I have bilocated, and even it's different from that, because bilocation is like another version of who you are right now. And you would look down and see your body, your clothes, the same clothes you had, like the same energy field just
Right.
projects, like doubles, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
not that.
Hmm.
It's something else completely. And
Does it feel like a lucid dream almost?
no,
No.
it's very real. I can taste the food. I can touch things. I could do anything that I could do now, depending upon the density of the experience and what dimension I'm in, and what the density is that I'm experiencing.
And are you able to experience, say, in this future, different future timelines, different densities at that time too, like heavier worlds and heavier, would they be heavier timelines, or would they just be different parts of the earth that are coexisting in the same, just like we have now? We have we have war zones and heavier areas and pockets of the planet. Is it kind of
Yeah,
like that?
it is kind of like that, except that I am in this particular potential based upon wherever the world is currently headed.
Oh,
And one
okay.
of the things that I know from my psychic experiences is that I have particularly vivid, detailed visions of the future. Some like to call that a seer, some like to call it prophecy,
Mhm.
whatever it is. And then it happens. And it happens typically within, I'll get some things that happen right away. And unfortunately, I'm not given enough time, some to even tell anyone about it. And then other things that happen 10, 15 years from now. And I start getting the different potentials of what it would look like. And if we sway from that potential, then my vision would change if we sway from that potential. So
Hmm.
everything, to answer
Okay.
your
Yep.
question, is sort of like if you can experience being in a tower, an air traffic control tower, and looking at the screen.
Mhm.
My brother is an air traffic control person, and he explained this to me. He said, is it like this when all the planes are flying and there's a near miss sometimes? And and when you're coming closer. And I said, I don't think that I'm like that in terms of having a near miss. I think that our energies collectively can pull forth certain things that make certain densities and parallel experiences closer to each other than not.
Yeah.
We are running a lot of different potential parallel timelines right now. Some of
Mhm.
them are great and some of them are absolutely atrocious. So I started bringing about these experiences, to my YouTube channel, and oh my gosh, they didn't take to it, because
They didn't take to it.
I'm a prophecy person, so I brought
Okay.
it to them and said, okay, here's your warning. Here's where we're going.
Oh,
If
okay.
there's
I see. See.
nice things,
Yeah.
like, why would I tell them great, beautiful things? You already know that. I can just tell you that.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
But if I really want to help, I'm going to show you the harder things.
Yep. So we know what we can do to overcome them, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I think there's different types of people on the planet. Like somebody like me, I've heard, especially your end of the year and New Year predictions that you came out with. That's what ultimately led me to reaching out. I think that I'd heard a bunch of other things, but I was like, okay, it's time. It's the new year. Let's reach out to Pamela and see if she'd be willing to come
Oh, you
on.
got me from that. That was a very difficult
I,
video. I had some hard things that I was seeing.
yeah, I think it was maybe in that video that I had. There was a lot. Maybe that was in a live chat or somewhere around that time. I had in it typing. I was like, "Hey, would you be willing to come on the show?" And I think you said, "Yeah, that sounds interesting." But because a lot of what I do, sort of in my unique way of collecting data sets, as I was saying earlier, I collect a lot of data sets. For me, talking to different channelers and talking to the different entities and sort of collecting data sets, not so much in the specifics, but in the energy, reading the vibration of where the planet's headed. We know there's this giant ascension that's going on. That seems to be collective. All the channelers and beings and entities all collectively agree that we have this big awakening that's happening on planet Earth. The details get a little dicey depending on who you're talking to, but the energy and the frequency is there. So I try to collect different data sets that I can see happening in the real world now that matches up with that this idea of ascension and some call it the returning of Atlantis, or that energy and processing those old wounds. But it very much what you were saying was in alignment with sort of how I see based on my data sets the world, working out these different karmic things and moving into a more harmonious earth. And even the term the new earth is something that I like to use a lot as well. Mm-hmm. So we're definitely in alignment with even the terminology of this new earth and how that looks. Could you describe from your perspective what I know there's like 3 different groups, but maybe in a general way, what is the new earth in your vision?
Oh my gosh, so many more than 3. But from what
right.
So many more potentials, and some of them are so beautiful, and some of them are a little bit more technologically advanced than us right now, and some are somewhere in between, and some are very earthly shamanic, living off the land, and some are community-based. Mm-hmm. Many actually are community-based.
Right.
And I really enjoyed talking to a lot of the beings that explained to me from year 2111, what Earth would look like and the 3 potential groups of humans that would be there and what that would be like. Those were some of my favorite beings to talk to. Mm-hmm. And I think that it kind of triggered me a little bit in a certain sense, because when one of those versions of New Earth from a being who told me her name is Clarion, when she explained to me what that group looked like, it kind of, oh my goodness, it felt so hard to stay with her and listen, because I am anti-transhumanism.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And and that potential, it didn't scare me because I've had so many visions of it, but it's not my world.
Sure.
It's not my particular resonance. I don't it, that agenda. And yet I could see like the value in certain AIs, that are, kind of simple AI systems, AI systems, right? But I also recognize that there was so many different divisions and potentials. So even since I've done the 3 videos, 1 on YouTube and 2 on my Patreon channel, even since then, with those 3 sects of humans in 2111, I can see different things shifting even prior to then in relation to different types of groups breaking out before then, like in mine and your lifetime and in everyone's lifetime here. And some of those groups look incredible, like the changes that we're making. It may appear like we're not getting things done, but we really, really are. And that's incredibly exciting for me, to see.
When you say looks, not just the physical look of the being, but just like general things, right?
Well, when it looks like, what I mean by that is like the look of the vision that I'm getting from where we're going, the potential of what that looks like. Right. And the various potentials of where we're going, because density shifts all the time. And dimensions are just a measurement anyway of where we are according to our density. But when we come together and make collective decisions, it's sort of like sharing a dream together. And the more we have of people who can share a dream together, and we're on the same wavelength, if you will, in all respects, in our belief systems and in our connection to our own personal power, and our connection to our freedom, and not necessarily our independence, but our interdependence, then we start to get really wonderful timelines. The potentials start looking peaceful.
Can you describe the difference between independence and interdependence?
Yeah. I see a lot of independence right now, which is one of the reasons why I saw the 2111 timeframe looking really so diverse with 3 different sets of people in New Earth. But they were all so happy, despite the fact that like the transhumanism, like I think they called themselves the United Nations Order, the UNO. And it's not my thing. But I talked to them and they're all so happy with all these little robots doing everything for them. And hovercraft and all these
Right,
flying planes and
right.
different things that it would blow my mind. But my goodness, in the 80s, like having a computer would blow our mind now. So
Sure.
what really blows our mind, you know? But I noticed there was a lot of interdependence upon each of the colonies for the 3 different versions of New Earth. They worked with each other. They didn't always trust each other, but they recognized the value in working together, despite the fact that, say, the I think the New Earth Order, they're more trusting of the other 2 orders. But I think it's the RRO, the Republican Renegade Order, they don't trust either of the 2 orders, but they're starting to build a little bit of a trust with the New Earth Order, and they're getting there, and this is taking time. So they're interdependent, despite the fact that they don't trust each other. They're starting to recognize, because Earth needs them. Earth itself needs them to do that. That's a requirement in the future, based upon where we're headed right now.
And with these, obviously these, Mark just raises a question here, and about, infinite possibilities, infinite, there is not necessarily this vision of the future. Like, as you just said, it's ever changing based on the frequency and the vibration and the harmonization and the coherence of humanity right now, right? And that's probably always shifting depending on what's happening now.
I feel like that statement, for some people, I hear that statement a lot in particularly New Age communities, and I find it a way to kind of like bury your head in the sand, like, no offense. But what I mean by that,
Sure.
well, let me explain a little. When people say,
Yeah.
well, I get a lot of that in YouTube, that's not my reality. And I'm like, well, unfortunately, like when we dream together, we create a very big reality. Even our subconscious beliefs are aligned to it. So we actually can have independent facets, but it would sort of be like saying, well, I'm going to be in my own timeline and tap into one of the potentials. But the truth is, we're also operating together in like billions of people. And there's a power in that can pull you in to that potential if you are not aware of your subconscious belief systems, if you are not aware of your personal power and your willingness to really see love and peace and purity in the population that we know as human, and to actually contribute to it, which is the point of New Earth, is to contribute to it, as opposed to being like, well, that's not my thing, and there are millions of potentials, so I don't want that one. And that's us not working together. Like, we've got to be willing to see the potential for positive or negative and say, you know what, together we're going to change that. I don't like that, but together change that.
Well, and that's sort of what, having this vision of the visions that you have, and sort of the foresight, right? The foresight is, well, if this is the most likely outcome based on the trajectory we're on right now, well, that doesn't look very good to me. So I'm going to do what I can to make those changes, right? Just like we're seeing right now with the, in the monetary system, we know, and the debt-based enslavement system. It's just, we know if we keep going down this path, it doesn't look good. So we're looking for alternatives. And that's what we talk about on the show. We talk about Bitcoin, and we talk about, decentralization, gold, silver for now, right? Until that, whatever manifests itself to be in that energy and frequency of the new earth, whatever that ultimately, whether it's, I don't know if Bitcoin is going to survive, even another generation or two, but maybe as a frequency in the idea of decentralization, which I think is the lesson that Bitcoin has to offer the humanity.
It started to sound a good path. I feel like right now there's so many people that are so scared of the cash devaluation system that they're afraid to invest in it fully. Otherwise, it probably would have gone further, but it's starting to kind of lose its ground. Unfortunately, it was a really great start for us to diversify. Yeah,
and just to open up the idea, because I've been on this on the financial side of that we're kind of since 2010. Really, I didn't care anything about the world global economic financial whatever, but then realized when I started wanting to figure out solutions to fix the problems on the earth, the biggest problem on the earth is this debt-based infinite printing monetary system that America has the lead in, but the rest of the world is in that. So for example, I'm just using that as an example, as one of the big trajectory things that we can look at and say, okay, what can I look for to start steering the ship? Because we know that ship will eventually sink.
Yeah, and we're all in that. Like,
Yeah.
I know so many different people who attempted to start spiritual communities in the past few years that were from my own community, and they had all these grand ideas, and then they get out there to the land, and it's like, okay, so who knows how to garden? And everybody's like, well, I
Right.
still got to keep my day job.
Right. Right.
You
Yeah.
know, who knows how to, I'm like, when it comes right down to it, you still got to go to Lowe's and buy the tools unless you know how to mine some minerals in the earth and you've got some super special skills here.
Right. 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 Yeah.
So in a sense, we're all still in the system. We can work
Absolutely.
closer towards getting out of the system, but we have to be interdependent upon each other. I saw so
Mhm.
many communities just crashing these past few years after COVID, just sort of being like, well, yeah, I'm not going to do that because of my money, because I have to go to work. I'm not going to do that because of my kids or because of whatever it was. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but we're still not truly working together. Hence some of the timelines that I saw for 2111.
Yeah. Well, and ultimately, there's different ways to look at it. There's one of repelling and trying to get away from that system, right? And that's great. But there's another in that perhaps we're here to help show the system and all those using it another way. And it's not about jumping ship right away, but a slow transition and
Yes.
different and making small adjustments in our day-to-day life. And that's a big part of what I try to teach here. Is like, you don't have to go full in and, join the
Yeah.
ashram and
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
Become a
And be,
minimalist and give away
yeah,
everything
become
all, but just start from where you're at. Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
There's a start off position that we, wherever we're at. I started this journey over 10 years ago, and it's taken me a while, and I'm still I'm still very interdependent with the things here. But let's see, we have another question here. Earth will not be one group of people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, for example, some groups using more technology. Yeah, totally. Yeah, this is for sure a uh yeah, Mark, I think you hit the nail on the head. Look how diverse Earth is now, right? With all of the different types of people. Do you see it becoming even more diverse in beliefs and cultures, and even the hybridization of global mating, right? I'm in an international marriage. There's that aspect as well, and a lot of people are talking about ETs, right? And perhaps the hybrid races, in the sense that
Yeah,
humans
I saw
start
some of
entering.
that.
Did you?
You know,
Okay.
I saw that there were some people that preferred a lot of diversity,
Mhm.
a lot more than what's going on right now. I didn't see a lot of, particularly not after the year 2085. I saw a giant war prior to that time frame. And sometimes when I look at it, it's shorter, sometimes it's longer. But after that, it's like people don't have time for diversity anymore. No one's looking at that. Everyone has to work together. But by the year 2111, there was a lot of diversity in terms of no one's really thinking about it anymore. Everyone loves the more diversity, the better. And then what's interesting also is,
It takes us to 21 100 to figure that out.
no, it took us until 2085 to get
Still,
that.
that's a long ways, man. I'd hope we'd figure it out before then.
I hope the visions change, and
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
maybe
no,
they
I'm
will.
just
Maybe as we change our timelines, I can like get back with you and say, okay, now that has changed or gotten
sure.
closer, because that's always possible. Sometimes that happens. But what was really interesting to me is in 2111, the New Earth Order, and they started that in 2091 and really built that into a strong numbers, particularly in Britain, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the US, and certain small like portions of outlying islands. They started that order, and it was like not just diversity amongst humans, but intergalactic breeding. There's a lot of things that I never thought would happen, like the hybrid children became meeting, like hybrid children meaning like you have experiences kind of like I do,
Mhm.
and then you think it's in the astral, but then you got a baby out there somewhere. A lot of people don't know that that can happen, but it does happen very regularly. And then having those ships bring that child back, or like having an interracial marriage, say with a Pleiadian, or a person from the planet Mu in that system of New Earth, far away from here. There's another planet that's just been discovered that has Earth-like qualities, like right outside of our solar system. I don't know if you guys have been watching that closely. I know I have, and I've been kind
Oh,
of
no, I haven't.
looking
No.
at it, seeing some fun things there, but let me tell you. But anyway, we can get that in a minute.
Yeah.
But like beings from there, like coming back to here and us going there and having those type of relationships with each other and developing a whole different new species. And oh boy, did that piss my YouTubers off. They're like, no, we just want humans, and we're human and we're here to just be human.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, well, let me tell you, you're actually not. You never
Right. So, well, with that said, you know, and you mentioned a planet named Mu. So I was always thinking of the continent Mu, or that era of that civilization of Mu. Because another one of the channelings that I felt that really resonated was with the Lemurian and Atlantean timelines.
My favorite timelines.
Oh, okay, because that has to do, you know, a lot of the work I'm doing right now, and I'm working with ancient crystal skull and doing a whole TV show on that.
What is the skull's name?
It's the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull. It's the more famous one, that kind of the first one that inspired Indiana Jones, and also
Does it give itself a name when it talks to its keeper or guardian?
Well, Bashar has called it Kukumats, or you know, what is that? The Mayan Quetzalcoatl, right? That energy. So I think that's the archetype that he assigned it, or he tried to show. So that could be, I don't know if other people seem to have had past life experiences with it. And talk about their visions and stuff. So I don't know what exactly. I know you have a crystal back there that you talk to, or that's talking to you, or talk to you to get you to go to the shop and get it. But many people have interacted with the Mitchell Hedges skull and have had profound experiences, and that's
typically it will choose a ward or a guardian. Like the crystal will choose a person, and that person won't be able to not have it.
That's what we're following. We're following the ventures of Bill Holman and the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull, who he carries it around as its caretaker, and that's what our show is. Yeah, our show is it's an adventure show about about Bill and the wacky world of ancient Atlantean crystal skulls, and how they're helping us transition into the next stage.
Well, Shekinah is a Lemurian energy, but I would be so
okay.
interested in also meeting the Atlantean energy from the skull of which you speak.
Well, going back to Lemurian and maybe Shekinah, did I say that right? Shekinah?
Shekinah, yeah.
Shekinah. What and Mu? So what was your idea of Mu and Lemuria and those and Atlantis? And I know they're all kind of different timelines, but yet they're interconnected in some ways. What's your take on based on your conversations, that era or those eras?
I feel like a lot of the beings, the Lemurian beings who were on our planet in our beginning times, came from that whole continent on our planet, was from planet Mu, which was right outside of our star system, like an unnamed star system. Yeah.
And is that what we're re-seeing now? And you said there was
there's another planet right outside of our solar system.
Okay.
And because of our vibration, this is just what I've been picking up on a lot from Shekinah recently with this information, is that our vibration is finally lifting to the point where we can recognize that Earth, and our scientists can find that Earth and see that Earth, and that's Mu. And there are definitely beings living there. They're not human, but they're what we would have become if we had not been so, I don't know the word, stymied or shifted in our DNA expression from the earthly Atlantean Lemurian times.
All right. And are you familiar with storylines of like Maldek and Mars and different beings coming into Earth from those planets?
Absolutely. And that was the beginning of our DNA being shifted into a lot lesser density and a lot of human slavery, and races formed from the two different groups of people at that time were Anki and Enlil. And
okay.
Yeah.
Is that together making the Anunnaki, or are those two just different lineages?
They were two
of
forces of the Anunnaki who turned against each other, and some of them became humans that are very aware and more earth angel type of beings, and some of them created the slavery and a lot of the alliances with certain Alpha Draconi races and things of that nature that are still around today, particularly in our government systems.
When you peer into the future with your abilities, do you still are the general populace still interacting with angelic realms like we are now?
It's so common, like common, so common.
More common than now, perhaps.
Not exactly in the way that seers do, but people start to recognize, like right now, for instance, precognition, claircognition. These are two functions of the brain that are very underrated, but they are incredible. And people just say things like, well, I just thought that probably just came through my thought system. And, when you get like a knowingness of something deep in your instinct, that is something we just toss aside. And it's one of the more powerful ways to connect. And we're all just saying, oh, that's nothing. I probably made it up. We're still coming out of those timelines as a human race. Right.
So the more we acknowledge and sort of accept that these ideas or our imagination is actually really realms that we're interacting with, then that I guess is the invitation for more of that to come through in a more tangible way.
Imagination's a vehicle. Mm-hmm. You need a car to get down the road. The soul needs a car. It needs the imagination. So I say, if you want to connect, get more imaginative. Don't just push it aside.
Totally. Yeah.
Wonder. Use that.
Love that. Well, I'm going to go ahead and let's take some questions from our audience here. I've been hogging up. I could talk to them. I feel like I could talk to you forever. Just such a wealth of information and experiences. And I know we're going to have you back on in a few weeks and stuff too. So this is sort of like a quick little intro to our group here, to myself, and I look forward.
Lovely to meet you guys, all of you. Thank you so much for coming to meet me and listening.
Was anybody already aware of Pamela's work prior to this? Okay, Judy was, because a few people reached out to me about you. Actually, after I had already started watching you, then I don't know if it's like, maybe I wasn't paying attention before, but maybe people were suggesting and I just wasn't paying attention. But I was like, oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I know who Pamela is. Let's have her on. So yeah, if anybody, the floor is open. I'm going to go ahead and continue to ask away here while we got you. But if anybody wants to pop into the chat as well, type out a question or raise your hand. What energies are coming the strongest for you now these days?
In terms of the future?
Not necessarily the future, just like for messages for humanity and these types of, do you have a go-to? I guess most of my channelers I talk to have sort of this one go-to group, and then from there it may branch out. But yeah, I was just wondering, do you have a go-to person or group, or are they just whoever pops in?
Well, I have my main guides, Yeshua, otherwise known as Jesus by Christians. And then I have a group of Elohim beings that I talk to, and they just call themselves the El. And I love the El. I talk to them a lot, but I don't really have a go-to. All the beings say the same things. Mm-hmm. I have the guides that I was raised with since, age 5, but I love the El. And I try not to make any particular distinction in terms of like, this is my group or that is my group. I am trying to remain really clear with whatever wants to find me that is actually best for the collective right now. So,
well, I know some people you dabbled in. You said Jesus, Lucifer, and Lilith just to calm the trigger, the knee-jerk reactions on the Lucifer thing, and even some people may get knee-jerk reaction on Lilith. Can you put it in a different framing, I'm sure, than most people are familiar with, who just,
Yeah. Well, the being actually told me when I listed the name Lucifer, he said, that is just a role, and the role is not Satan. The role is the Satan, which is not a being. It is a role to play. And the role is to be able to have your free will sovereignty, to be the gift of free agency. Just when, and he gave me an example of just when you are walking through the door, and you choose to not hold it open for an elderly person behind you, there's a little voice in your mind that says, do you want to serve humanity right now and help a person across the street, or hold the door open, or just do those basic things? And that is what we call that free agency voice, the Satan, right?
Oh, I see.
So it's a role of just having free agency. You have to have the dualistic role in your mind that says, do this, it's great, or do this, it's not so great, the dualistic voice of choice. And that being identifies as Halal, actually not Lucifer. That was a name just given through religions. So the Jews got it right on that because they were like listening to that, I believe, in the Talmud and the Torah and all the different some of the Aramaic religions as well. So that being is a being that's responsible for just giving you free agency and to be able to tap into your power to make your own choices. And everything from there was just religious story. Everything from there was turned around into evil by religious stories.
So let me just reiterate. So the voice that's questioning us, whether we, basically questioning our path, that little voice that says, are you, what mission are you on here? What are you doing?
Yeah.
That voice, or that sort of confirmation, that is what
that is what Halal or Lucifer is. It is a being that's playing a role. Some people call it ego, if that makes you a better framework for it. Some people call it your ego, but I like to call it the framework of free agency, just your free will. That being is responsible for gifting that to you.
Is that associated with the trickster energy?
Some people can, but I like to associate the trickster energy more with the Heyoka, which is, from that native tribe of understanding. The Heyoka is an energy that comes in to say, okay, once you've chosen, let's trick you away from it, or let's try to make you think something is good for you, or make you think something is bad for you. That's Heyoka, that's trickster energy. That's different. That's everywhere. That's tribal. That's in culture. That's everywhere. Right. But that's not really a being. That's just our fear making entities. So entities are created by that collective or individual belief or fear pattern, right? So you can call that Heyoka or trickster or whatever you want to call it. But basically with the Satan, or the being that's in the position of that title right now, which is Hillel, that being doesn't say, I want to trick you. That being says, what is your choice? I'm not going to judge you and say it's good or bad or right or wrong. Just you are a powerful being, tap in and choose, because you want creativity and you want the beauty of this choice. And it may be, here are some of the consequences that you can think about, but it's not going to try to trick you to say, be this way or be that way.
I see. Charmaine asked, when interacting with the energy of Lucifer, was any information brought forward regarding the biblical story of Lucifer being an angel that was cast out of heaven?
Yeah. Halal was actually a prime dragon being, the first dragon collective that was in existence. So that was a part of the Seraphim angelic collective, for those of you who want to get deeper into gnosis and an understanding of the angels. So, and those beings did sit at the right-hand side of God, and some of those old stories have some truth to them.
Oh, interesting. And they actually took form in what we would consider dragons. Dragon. Oh, yeah. Interesting. Wow.
Yeah, so dragons were like original shapeshifter forms.
So it's an ancient energy.
Yeah, and he used elephants, and he slept in the earth for a long period of time. In my very first channeling of him on earth, he explained how that happened, how he fell, that he stayed in the center of the earth for a very long time sleeping, and that we woke him up to help us.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So that was the original story outside of religions.
Interesting. Now, I've heard the Luciferian energy associated with a seeking outside energy. Am I off on that, or is that so? Even like astrology or looking outside of us, that there's aspects of the Lucifer energy from that. which
I'm not
can,
really familiar with Luciferian teachings,
okay.
so I can't really confirm or deny that. Could you put it in a different way, maybe?
Well, in the like Rudolf Steiner work, he talks about the harmonic energy and the Luciferian energy as being a different kind of energies, and they all have their purpose for helping the evolution of humanity. But sort of that transhumanistic thing we're talking about was more of an harmonic energy of manipulating and trying to play God, where the Luciferian was seeking outside of oneself. And sometimes they team up. And this is all based on like Rudolf Steiner and Gigi Young's work. So I'm just wondering if
Oh, yeah.
there's correlation in there.
Yeah, I really couldn't confirm or deny that because I try to remain really clear in my channelings and not to have it backed up by any sort of hermetic information or other teachers' information.
Sure.
That's one of the things I love to do, is to be really, really clear so that I'm not taking anything from any of ancient teaching. I want to just get it as it comes.
Sure.
So
I'm trying to connect the dots on my end. So I'm just here. Yeah. But that we will, let's see. Does somebody else ask a question? And I was going to say, let's move on here.
Thinking about this with what you're saying about how the Luciferian energy can split off, but I believe that's the whole nature of doing this.
Yeah, not split off per se, but yeah. I'm not very versed in that stuff anyways. I'm just touching on the surface here. So I'm sure your guys and your experiences go way deeper than I could even try to touch upon in a very brief interview. So, but I am very curious about the Lilith energy, and what was. I mean, we have sort of, there's the different tales of that energy, and revenge as being a big part of it, and sort of betrayal. I've actually interacted with that energy in my own unique way as well, and I got my version of what that is. Not reading into text, not reading into text too much, but kind of hearing a little bit there, here and there, what that archetype is. And I have a feeling you're laughing because maybe you're seeing into some of the experiences I've had.
Oh, she will kick your butt. She really will. And sometimes it's in a really great way, and other times it's okay, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to pull you out of your own the way that you're keeping yourself stuck, and show you yourself, not necessarily the parts you want to see, but the parts you need to see, right? So I've been really grateful with working with her. She's brought out like all of my deepest insecurities and my in the past, like lack of confidence, and just anything that she's brought out and put right in front of me. It's been really easy for me to kind of just say, okay, I'm going to look at that and just toss it aside and not look at it. I prefer to deal with Hillel, who wants me to look at how I can make dualistic thoughts one, how I can look at the and consciousness, how I can forge a middle way for right and wrong and good and bad, and be a bridge in a newly birthed consciousness that is transpiring right now. It's so exciting. And Lilith is just like, yeah, well, you're also in dualism because you want to be in dualism. And no matter your gifts, no matter your abilities, no matter this, here are the things you still need to work on. And it's so much easier to stick with Halal, but I really feel challenged by Lilith in a great way. I feel that I can grow and expand and really look at the parts of me that I need to look at,
Do you think when I look into that energy, I feel there's different, just like we have different evolutionary stages for humanity, or let's say for Lisa Royale in her work, she talks about the different eras of like the Palladian eras and how they've gone through their evolution, Zeta beings even, and there's sort of like on one timeline, a higher timeline where some of these heavier energies have gone through their metamorphosis and sort of transmuted the heavier density stuff that was holding them back, and they've evolved, and they've got the lessons, and they're evolving great and that kind of thing. But then they're, depending on the era, they're still learning those lessons. They're still in the middle of that density shift. So I always see, I've seen Lilith at energy from different eras in more of a very young and innocent era, and then perhaps after the betrayal, where very strong and strict and like, okay, we're not doing that again. We're not gonna. Do you see it in that sense as well?
I do.
Are you
And
able
I
to
see
tap
that
into?
we're rolling into like not 10 or 20 or 30 or hundreds, not thousands, but millions. I would be,
Right.
I will be so, even if I live until 120 years old, right? I will not be able to cover all the potential expressions of Lilith and Halal that we seem to be playing with. Like we just
Sure.
keep dividing and dividing and dividing and dividing things, right?
Right.
And
Right.
we love doing that. We love doing that. So that and Lilith and Halal make that possible, but also to formulate a new consciousness is incredible. And I'm really excited for her work that she's bringing about and helping us understand our consciousness.
Yeah, it's all of these great teachers, whatever labels religion wants to put on them, they're still here to assist us in our evolution. Rosie has a quick question. I think she DM'd me about you recently had a dream with Metatron. I'm not familiar with this, and she's wondering how she can specifically ask Metatron, I guess, for help.
Do you want me to give you a light code real quick?
Yeah, that sounds, yeah. I'm sure. Where's Rosie here?
Can she see it?
Let's see, Rosie, can you chime in? Not sure. Actually, I don't see her on this. Oh, there she is.
Okay, I figured out how to unmute. Sorry.
Okay, great. Yeah,
I'm on my phone, and so yeah, I don't know how to turn the video on though. So
that's okay.
Yeah, we got your voice. Go ahead. Ask your question a little bit. Maybe if I didn't get it out.
That video that was really interesting, and how descriptive you were in that dream. And I assume the dream was probably a vision of sorts, and just the flattening out, and then the sunset thing was what really got me, because I was actually driving into a sunset that day too, which was really interesting. But the one thing you kept repeating was that you kept saying, you need to reach out and always ask for help, or that he kept telling you to say, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I feel like I've always had like something with Metatron. I mean, I'll be in my car and I'll be like, Metatron, help me with this traffic, or, like whatever, like that's just kind of the connection I have. But then I started thinking, like, how do you really get in tune with that energy, and how do you know what it really is, as opposed to other energies coming in?
Metatron's energy feels a little bit like that dream. For those of you who weren't there to hear that, it felt like a steamroller energy, kind of like flattening out a path before me. And I felt like I was just blindfolded, like it was dark and I couldn't see. And the sun was either going down or coming up. I don't remember the vision specifically right now, but either way, I kept going towards that without actually seeing it. And it just had this energy of like flattening out a path that was just wild and nondescript, and I couldn't see where I was going, but at the same time, it felt like very magnetizing, and I started to feel safe, and I started to feel that I didn't need to know everything in advance, and I didn't need to know the past either, that I just needed to be present in that moment. So when I write down the symbol that he showed me that I didn't get a chance to give to anybody, so for those of you who like to do your screenshots and things like that, this is the light language that I woke up saying. So it is a Metatronic Lemurian kind of pigeoning language between those two. So that Enochian, and what I mean by Enochian, I don't mean like John Day or any other Gnostic person. I mean actual Metatronic energy is Enochian language. So that is a combination of Enochian Lemurian language that means light the darkness and pave the path, is what that translates to. Light the darkness, pave the path. So even if you say that in English, or if you like to take your screenshots and you like to learn these light codes and light languages, it's a really beautiful way for you to connect even deeper. And when you use this symbol here, this is the light code symbol. And you can see it feels like a path and like something moving here and something up there to go to, you know. And this was like the energy of like trying not to get distracted, but being pulled in, not necessarily by the duality, but by that swirling energy that's going to move you no matter how distracted you are. So that's when he kept saying, you know, this phrase to me in the Enochian Lemurian language.
And can you say it for us?
Yeah, is Che'aya Kaya Ru'eleyama right here. Che'aya Kaya Ru'eleyama.
Che'aya Kaya Ru'eleyama. It almost sounds like Navi. I learned the Navi when I was working on.
Did you? Yeah.
I forgot it all, but yeah, we were making it up as we were going along. But it a lot of the linguist on set was very much. Now that I've been paying attention to different languages and stuff, I'm thinking back a lot of the video or the audio tapes he gave us. We had to listen to it. There's some similarities. It's kind of cool. I bet unintentional, but just kind of like frequency.
I'm not sure it's unintentional, because a lot of the Lemurian beings turned into native tribes that are still indigenous on our planet today, or unfortunately many are dying off, right? But those languages came from somewhere. And I believe they were from some of the older Metatronic angelic beings who were here, and some of the seraphim beings that were here that created a bunch of different races.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Mark, you want to go ahead and ask a question?
Hi. So I've noticed that for like individual growth, there's a lot of commonalities with the larger collective growth, at the society level and so forth. And sometimes, at the individual, it can be easy, or it can be, almost traumatic. Like when you're ready for the next phase, and you end up losing your job, getting laid off and or getting divorced. And then I'm curious about for the Ascension, when what you've kind of seen overall, like, is it kind of like a slower, smooth thing typically, or like a faster, more traumatic? Like, for instance, traumatic could be like a big sunburst, knocking out our power grid and telecommunication systems and forcing us to find a new program, or massive, natural disasters. So you're seeing more slow and gradual?
Yes and no. And here's why. We have forged so many different independent paths in our small groups in awakening. So we have people that are experiencing awakening a little bit more 4D. And then we have some small amount of people in 5D, and some even in 6 and 7D right now. So we have 4 groups and 4 types of ascension experiences going on right now. And when I first started studying that with humans, with where we are right now, we had 7. I don't know if you guys were here for that teaching when I channeled Dolores Cannon, and she talked about the 7 paths of ascension and the 7 like types of people that will experience it and what it feels like. But right now we've kind of gone down to 4, which is good. We don't need 7. But what's interesting is they're happening simultaneously. So you could have a large group of like billions of people experiencing this kind of slow, steady, not so difficult thing. And then you could have other people at the same time experiencing a complete solar flare, followed by a meteorite and something devastating, right? And you could have all of that happening in the various density experiencing, and in those dimensional measurements of that, it's happening at the same time. And this is it can't, if we have this logical mind that's like, okay, this happens and then that happens and that happens, if we have the ABCD system, that won't work for our thought program. It kind of blows my mind a little bit, but you'll be able to see people on the other side of the world experiencing something so absolutely atrocious and wondering what's going on. And then you'll hear stories about something atrocious, and then suddenly it's like, wow, I'm not experiencing that at all. This is why I don't read the news very much. I read something today, and it said, and this, my guides directed me. It's the only time I read the news is when it's spirit guide directed. And they said, go read that. And I read it, and it said from around June, we will completely collapse in terms of what we can do in our like federal debt systems and how much debt we have, right? And there'll be no more bailouts. We'll have some really bad consequences and things like that. And we'll be able to sway it until then. And so I went to June and I looked at my timeline, and then I looked at like a close friend of mine timeline. She was completely affected by that, and I wasn't at all. And like, it just was really, it blew my mind that we can experience the same thing differently, each of us, right? So it's yes and no to answer your question. And
I'm seeing that now. There's people who experience COVID completely differently than other people.
Right. COVID, I experienced it and it was like a mild bronchitis. But whatever this thing that's coming after that my guides have told me a lot about that. I thought that was going to kill me. And I experienced it and let my immune system get used to whatever this new thing is. And I thought it was going to kill me. I'm like, wow, and I'm fairly healthy. So I didn't understand how, how in the future, if other people get this virus, like how are they going to experience it? And I was told, oh yes, some will be fine, some won't, some will, some won't. So adjust to it while you can, get your immune system strong. And I get a lot of that experiencing of the vision of the Russian doll, like little dolls inside of each other. And we're all experiencing that closely.
Oh, I meant at the larger level, like for me, I've never had COVID, so but like I know a lot of people they've experienced it like an upgrade. But I meant like, for my business, my business is in Texas, I'm in North Carolina, but it was great for me. It was great for my business. I got a great house at a great deal because of COVID. I know a lot of other people that were doing really good. And I know, but other people, other businesses were destroyed by COVID. And they had, family die. I didn't have any family die. The closest I had was an ex-employee like a month after he quit. He died from complications of COVID. But he had already left my business, so it wasn't actually, zero impact on my business. So it was like I was being protected the whole time. And I really feel like, I'm in a bubble. And I love what Georgia Jean, who's one of the channels I follow, via Reuben, and she says, at this time, stay in your heart, and then you'll be in the eye of the storm.
Yeah, you'll be in the eye of the storm, and you'll see it swirling all around you, and even collectively, and not just meaning individually, even collectively, this is happening, and you'll notice like tragic things are happening to some parts of the world, and that's more of, I wouldn't say slow and steady or super fast. It's somewhere in the middle. If I look at overall how it's going, we're somewhere in the middle.
Right. And actually, now that I think about it, COVID was biblical crap. That impacted the whole planet. The whole planet slowed down, and came to a pause. Actually, now I think about it, yeah, that was actually pretty dramatic.
We're prepared for it now. So when the next one comes, which believe me, it is, we are going to address it so differently. So many people were scared, but collectively we will address this so differently the second time around when it comes.
Oh, I won't care at all next time.
Right.
I think most people, are kind of over the whole fear mongering and all this stuff. But according to Bill Gates, he's already said it, 2025, they just did another simulation like Event 201 back in 2019, sort of showing the cards. The Gates and his crew have already done that, and their projected date is 2025. So if he was as accurate as he was with the last pandemic prediction thing, then we'll see if he's on.
Reuben, you gotta stop me, because there's too many wormholes I would go down with that.
No, it's all good. I don't want to dwell on it.
Psychic Bill Gates.
Exactly. Yeah, he's definitely not a psychic. But just have fun with the link I put in there, and then listen to my conspiracy talk on Friday nights, and we'll go into that one later. Julia has her hand up. I want to get to her question.
Hi there. I'm just trying to get my camera to work so you can see my face. There you go. Hello. Firstly, I just want to say what a big fan I am of both of you. Pamela, I watch a lot of your videos, and Reuben, interviews with Extra Dimensionals was one of the first programs that I started watching during my awakening, and it just started the whole channeling rabbit hole for me. So thank you both for your contribution to the community. My question is probably more personal, but it may also benefit, I guess, other people that are on the call that are in the same situation or watching later. So I consider myself still fairly a newbie, I guess, in the spiritual community, but I'm starting to have some experiences, which one I actually wrote to you, Reuben, and you replied to me, and thank you for that. I had my first astral travel experience where I popped into a spaceship with a grey and startled him and myself, and then popped straight back into my body. I've woken up and seen golden symbols floating kind of in the air in my bedroom. I'm having lucid dreams where I'm getting taken into spacecraft, and they're showing me healing sessions using different crystals. And then just recently I got given a message right before waking up that says, on September 9, follow your path, follow the intrigue. So I guess my question is, I don't understand any of it. I don't know what they're trying to say or what it means. And I'm probably looking for some coaching or guidance or advice. What can I do to try and understand what I'm being shown, what I'm experiencing? Or do I just kind of hand it over to the universe and wait for it to present itself to me?
The first thing I would do to guide a new channel or a newly awakened person who's having the experiences with different EDs and things of that nature is psychic energy hygiene. You know, ground, purify, release energy. And people say that, oh yeah, I do that, I ground it. No, I mean, like, have so many tools, like you're a walking, like you should be a spiritual mechanic. You should have a tool belt that's like that, because you're going to need it.
Okay.
Like, I laugh nervously when saying that to you, because I can see how powerful this is becoming for you. And you need to become very responsible with like your mental care, your self-care, eating channels. You can't eat crap. Like you have to eat very well, fresh, wholesome foods, and drink a lot of water, and more water when you think you're done, and get plenty of sunshine. Watch your vitamin D's, like watch things. Channels are really low on D and B12 and B3 and iron, and these are all psychic energy hygiene tools. And you cannot be like, your whole life is going to change. You'll be adverse to eating meat at some point. You will be adverse to watching certain things on the TV at some point. You'll be adverse to alcohol. You'll be adverse to wine. And that may be temporary and may be permanent. For me, that was pre-temporary. You know what I mean by temporary was like 20 years. So, right. And now I can drink a little bit if I want to, but just like typically I won't want to, because I know the effects are terrible. They're not going to affect my channeling, but it's going to affect my body. Right. So you have to change your whole life. And it becomes this devotion of being able to say, you know what, I'm going to get up before the sun rises, and, you know, and I'm going to sleep when the sun goes down, and change your whole life and let that change, because your connection is going to be more grounded, more emotionally and physically safe for you, more healthy in all areas of your life, and more powerful, much more powerful when you do all those things. So that's what people often say things like, well, just go meditate, and not channels don't meditate well. It's not always an easy fix with that, you know, so we don't. So I always suggest things like use light languages and light codes, use vibrational music. This is why I started creating my healing sound music. I have multiple albums, about to record another one because of that. Because channels like myself, we need things, because we can't meditate in silence unless we're out in nature. Right? People are just too distracted and distracting to us, and typically loud, and sounds change, and vibrations. Like you'll start to recognize different things in music you used to love, you suddenly hate. And I would have so much advice to you, but I don't want to take up all your time. But generally speaking, in terms of trying to interpret it, right now you need to use inquiry, use the spiritual tool of inquiry, and ask more questions. You know, ask very relevant, direct, specific questions to these beings. What is your intention with me? You know, is a really good one. Why am I here? Because I know I didn't get here by myself. You don't just get up on a craft by yourself. That doesn't happen until you're like well advanced in what you're doing with the remote viewing and the astral travel. So now that you've started, start to ask questions, because typically they probably pulled you there, not the other way around. And we want to know why. Ask questions, keep asking questions, keep asking questions. If you don't know, ask the guidance to become more specific and get used to the beings. All the beings have kind of like a flavor. Metatron for me has this old serious man energy. like with the long beard and the very respectful, and loving for sure, but definitely not someone I want to go in and like throw around some jokes. Versus Jesus, oh my goodness, he's so slapstick. Like I could say anything to him, and Lilith, I can curse at her. She doesn't care. Like everyone has like a different energy. So you need to get used to the energies, because you never know what's going to happen. Those trickster energies do tend to intervene with channels, and you need to stay really, really clear. And the final advice I'm going to offer to you is, with the exception of beings you really trust, like Reuben here, I wouldn't really watch a lot of spiritual things right now. I would really turn off, because that affects your filters, and you need to keep your filters pure, 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 pure. You can read books that you love and things like that, but in terms of spiritual teachers and other channels and things like that, stay pure while you're trying to connect, and maybe pick that back up later. But trust your own knowledge, like trust it before anyone else's, including all your favorite teachers. Trust your own knowledge.
No, thank you. No, that really resonates, because some of that stuff is already starting to happen. Like I can't drink alcohol anymore. That stopped about a year ago, and the food's starting to change as well. The sleep pattern, going to bed earlier, getting up earlier. So that makes sense. Yeah, thank you. I just have one last question, if that's all right. It's because I've had Sekhmet come to me a couple of times now in meditation. I'm just wondering, have you ever connected with her energy, and what is that like?
Similar to Lilith, except a little bit more behaved. So I'd say that she's a little bit similar to Nat and Bastet and all the Egyptian ones, but mostly she's a part of the Hathor collective. So Hathor collective is a part of the Magdalene order, which is all like the Magdalene, divine feminine, ancient energies of divine feminine, divine mother. So I would suggest like asking her to meet at her temple. So you like set that intention in your astral travel, meet at the temple of Sekhmet. Just keep saying that as you're going into meditation or as you're falling asleep. And that'll be the last phrase in the beta brain waves. And you'll be able to have a meeting and start some. Maybe ask if she wants to initiate you. And is there a reason why? Maybe she just wants to get to know you as a part of her sister, but there could be, typically with Sekhmet, she wants like a alchemical initiation to happen for you.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Thanks. Super cool. Well, can I sneak in one more question we had in the chats? This goes back to the Luciferian conversation. This is second part to Charmaine. She was asking, the Seraphim angels came to earth and mated with human women. That I think this is our Bible studies, right? Is the story from the book of Enoch, right? Which created giants. So you mean that Lucifer was one of the Seraphim came to earth and mated with human women? I think there's a lot in there. So maybe if you want to just unpack some of that.
The seraphim are angelic beings who have never necessarily, like, what I believe what that person could be talking about is the Nephilim, which was a part of the group of beings who did that. And no, that's not the seraphim. Seraphim are there for protection. They did create races, but they didn't have to mate with anybody because they're not of that density to want to do that. But the Nephilim angelic collective did do that. They were in the book of Enoch. That was what was called the giants.
I see. So the Nephilim, what we have around the planet now, we have these giant skeleton remains that keep getting unearthed. Would that be that race, that group, the Nephilim? Or is that more Anunnaki stuff?
Angelic race.
Or angelic race. And they physically came into our density and mated with, wow, interesting. Cool. Well, how do people, we're going to make this a little bit shorter today, guys, because we'll have Pamela back on next time. But definitely between now and the next time we have you back on, which I think we talked about the February 19th. I think that's okay. between now and then, definitely, where can we send people that I put links and stuff, and I'll have links here for people to check out your website and stuff. But you do a Patreon, you have different tiers.
Yeah.
And on your website, there's a ton of material. It was a little confusing because I clicked on buy, but then it would say like a donation. So you just go through the donation process, and then that's maybe.
Oh no, we went and double checked after you said that, and they do work fine. But you'd have to the product that you actually liked. I think maybe you clicked on the donate button, perhaps.
Oh, okay. Maybe it was. Does it work in different browsers in different ways? I wonder, because I'm usually using. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. We're in the process of like getting a whole new website anyway, so that should be streamlined here soon in a month or so.
That one's fun.
But this one does work fine as far as I know. But mostly I just send people to either Patreon or YouTube
Right.
because unless you want to work one-on-one with me, then you can go to the website. But even through Patreon, you can get all kind of discounts with working one-on-one with me. Like every month we offer discounts for people who want to do that. But and that's kind of. Right now, I'm still working one-on-one with people, but because I'm also writing and creating albums that over the next, like, say, 5 years may start to phase out. So if you want any teachings and one-on-one stuff now is definitely the time to do it before I get too old to have energy for it.
All right. Well, there's a plethora of information there. I'm having a ball just going through all of the different videos and access and finding new things on your website. Like I'm like, oh wow, I want to check that one out. So. So I'm sure between now and the next time we see you, we'll hopefully myself and the audience will get a little bit more educated on your work, and we'll go deeper next time.
There's a lot of it right all over YouTube, so for free for everyone.
Yeah,
so under the there.
Well, thank you. Thanks for taking the time today. I'm glad we made this intro, and we'll looking forward to more cosmic conversations down the road.
All right, sounds good to me.
All right, take care.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.